4.1 Ethical, legal and health and safety issues. Ethical relates to moral principles and the extent to which a person's behaviour is either right or wrong. Legal means that you are working within the boundaries of the law and that the behaviour will not result in action from the authority. Health and safety is rules or procedures that are in place to prevent accidents or injuries in a working or public environment. In 1974, the Health and Safety Work Act was created to ensure that people were and felt safer in the workplace in order to reduce injuries occurring. In World War II, the Nazis conducted extremely unethical experiments on prisoners in concentration camps. These tests included pressuring men, women and children against their will into doing painful experiments where they were tortured so that the researchers could benefit from their results. Many participants were killed during the tests and many others were left with physical or psychological harm. At the time, there were no codes of conduct for human experimentation, so the researchers did not believe what they were doing was unethical. Some of the experiments included putting people in freezing water to see how long it took for them to pass out or die, tests involving poison, and also bone transplantation. In 1947, 2 years after World War II finished, the Nuremberg Code was created in order to stop unethical experiments ever happening again on humans. The Nuremberg Code has 10 points which help to prevent unethical experiments and to stop mistakes being made. The points include making sure participants are volunteers, the benefits must outweigh the risks, should avoid unnecessary harm, tests must be conducted by qualified researchers, the subject has the right to withdraw, scientists must be prepared to terminate the test at any point, and proper preparations must be taken if there is a chance of injury. The Declaration of Helsinki was created in 1964 by the World Medical Association, involving a set of ethical principles that the researcher should acknowledge before testing on a human subject. It contains similar points to the Nuremberg Code, such as preparation should be done to make sure the participant is not at risk of any physical or psychological harm, the benefits must outweigh the risks, and the test must be conducted by a qualified researcher. However, it also includes protocols that should be taken with vulnerable participants and states that experiments must be approved by an ethical committee. BASES is the British Association of Sport and Exercise Sciences. The organisation offers a wide range of sport and exercise expertise, and their BASES membership allows access to a large network of professionals in professional development. They can also give guidance, advice and research for a variety of sport and exercise topics. The BASES Code of Conduct includes points such as ethical clearance is needed to conduct an experiment, researchers must have an informed consent from the subject, confidentiality should be present, data protection should occur due to the Data Protection Act in 1998, and researchers must be competent to carry out the test. Scenario 1. An informed consent is a document that protects the researcher and also the participant, as it states that what will be expected in the experiment and identifies any risk that could occur. A good thing that this researcher did was that they made a generic informed consent which he got the children's parents to sign. This is essential as they are under 18, so they need permission from their parent or guardian, because it is against the law to do research on children without parental consent. This means that the research will be protected if something goes wrong and the parents try and gain compensation. Having the correct qualifications to carry out an experiment is vital, as it is stated in various codes of conduct like the Nuremberg Code and the Declaration of Helsinki. The researcher in Scenario 1 has the appropriate qualifications, which is a good practice as it means the participants will be much safer, and it means that the researcher will be able to get ethical clearance from an ethical committee. One thing that this researcher did wrong was that he didn't allow the participants to withdraw, which is very unethical and is stated in the Nuremberg Code that all participants have the right to withdraw at any time. If the participant isn't allowed to withdraw, then it can make them feel uncomfortable and embarrassed, especially as they have to wear swimsuits because they may feel self-conscious of their body image. The consequence of this is that it could cause psychological harm to the participants, as it could seriously affect the way they think and cause anxiety and stress if they are forced to do something that they don't want to. The consequence to the researcher could be that they will need ethical training and supervision when conducting tests for a period of time such as 3 months. This could mean that future clients may think that the researcher isn't qualified, and it could mean that your reputation will be quite poor if people find out that you need supervision and ethical training. In a serious case, the participant's parents may take legal action if their child has suffered psychologically due to the researcher, which could lead to a criminal law tribunal. This would mean that the researcher would either get a prison sentence or a fine, and as a result of this, they would most likely lose their BASIS accreditation and their job, as it would give the company or organisation a bad reputation. The correct thing to do is to allow the participant to withdraw if they wish to do so, and then respect their decision without making any rude comments. You can try to reassure the participant that everything will be fine and there's nothing to worry about, but if their final decision is to withdraw, then you must accept this. This means that there will be no psychological harm to the participants and they will feel more relaxed and comfortable. Another bad practice was that the researcher put the results on a whiteboard for everyone to see, which goes against the Data Protection Act from 1998. This means that the participant will be able to see each other's results, which could cause embarrassment and awkwardness, especially with the children, as they are more immature and likely to laugh at each other's results. This could lead to psychological harm for the participants, as they may become very self-conscious and anxious about their results due to bullying or people laughing at them. The consequences of breaking the Data Protection Act can be very serious for the researcher, as they could get up to a 6-month prison sentence and up to a £5,000 fine. This will also damage their reputation, so it is likely that they will lose their job, and it will also be harder to find a new job as a researcher because their organisation will prefer someone with recommendations from other places. Another thing that the researcher did wrong was that they didn't do a brief debrief after they had completed the experiment. This means that they didn't inform the participants of what will happen with the results and why they will help to find further information. Debriefs are important as it means that the participants will know what will happen with their results and how they will help to identify new areas in research. It also means that the participants will know that their results will be kept safe and secure, because some people may feel embarrassed about the results from the tests. The consequence to the participants of not doing a debrief is that it could cause psychological harm if the participant is not informed that their results will be open for people to see. This is because they may not have wanted their results to be seen by a lot of people, and they may have withdrawn if they were told in the debrief that this was going to happen. The consequence to the research could be that they may receive supervision for the next 6 to 8 weeks, so that the organisation can keep an eye on the research to make sure that they don't damage their reputation. Supervision will also help the researcher remember to do all the necessary procedures during experiments, as they will be more focused when they are being watched and under scrutiny. The research also forced reluctant kids to take part in the experiments, which is unethical, and in both the Nuremberg Code and the Declaration of Helsinki it states that you should only research on volunteers. This could cause psychological harm to the participant, because if they don't want to do something, then it means that they feel uncomfortable or anxious, which can cause things like panic attacks and trauma if they are forced into it. This could result in the researcher needing ethical training so that they will deal with situations more respectfully and understand what is right and wrong in the future. Also, the participant or their parent may take legal action if they feel like serious harm has been caused. This could lead to either a fine or a prison sentence, depending on the severity of the situation, and it would also damage their reputation as a researcher, so it would be harder to find future jobs, especially if the researcher lost their BASIS accreditation. Finally, the researcher didn't do a risk assessment, which is a document used to help identify potential risks to the participant or researcher and what needs to be in place to stop anything bad happening. It is also used to measure how serious the risk is by using a risk rating system, so that they will be able to see whether the risk will outweigh the benefits of the experiment. It is extremely important for the researcher to create a risk assessment, as it means that the controls will be in place to stop things from going wrong. However, as they did not make one, there could be very serious risks during the experiment that could make it unsafe, but the researcher wouldn't know about them or the likelihood of them happening, as they didn't take any precautions. The consequence of the researcher not making a risk assessment is that it could cause physical harm to both the participant and researcher, as there may be risks that need to be controlled before the test starts that could injure someone. Also, if a participant is injured and the researcher does not have a risk assessment for the experiment, then the consequences will be extremely serious. For example, the researcher would lose their job and they would get a criminal law tribunal if the participant pressed charges, which would lead to a severe fine or a prison sentence if the participant has a significant injury because of the researcher's actions. Here is a risk assessment for the experiment. Scenario 2. One bad practice was that the researcher did was that they had a poor test sequence as they didn't plan the order of the test before conducting them. Instead, they decided to try and complete a test in a small amount of time, which isn't good as it means it will be rushed, so the results will not be as reliable. Also, as there was little time to spare, it meant that the warm-up won't be as effective as there was less time to do it in. The consequence of a shorter warm-up is that it could cause physical harm to the participant because their muscles won't be properly warmed up and pliable, so there is more chance of pulling a muscle or experiencing delayed onset muscle soreness. If anything did happen to the participant because of the researcher's poor test sequence, then it could result in a formal reprimand, which means that they could get a temporary suspension or their contract would be terminated. This means that they would not be able to work for their organization ever again or for a period of time, such as 3 to 6 months or a year. This would affect them a lot as it means other organizations might not want to hire them because the formal reprimand would be on their record, which gives them a bad reputation. The correct thing to do is to plan the test sequence before the experiment so you are able to leave enough time to get through all the tests. This would mean that the researcher wouldn't have to shorten the warm-ups so the participants would be at less risk of injury. Another thing that the researcher could have done better was to go through the first aid procedures in order to keep them and the participants safe if anything goes wrong. As a result of not preparing the first aid procedures, the researcher was not able to help the child who twisted their knee, so it meant that they would be in even more agony as he wasn't taken care of properly. This could lead to a criminal law tribunal for the researcher, as the parent may press charges as you were responsible for taking care of the children if they get hurt. This would most likely lead to a large fine, but in serious cases, the researcher could get a short prison sentence. The correct thing to do would have been to make sure you know where the nearest first aid kit is, and the researcher must also prepare for specific needs such as asthma and diabetes. You could also speak to the Health and Safety Executive, which is a national organisation who can give you advice on how to make the experiment safe for the participants. Another bad practice was that the researcher did not treat the participants equally, as they tried to speed up the test by doing the better boys first. This shows that the researcher did not show equality, as he left the participants who were at lower ability until last as they weren't quick enough. This could cause psychological harm to the children who got picked last, as they may feel embarrassed and ashamed due to the researcher's actions, and it could cause trauma and social anxiety as they have been humiliated in front of their peers. The consequence for the researcher would be that they would need to receive ethical training, as they would have been involved in unethical behaviour. This would then teach them how to behave properly when working with a group of people and how to treat everyone equally in any situation and no matter what is different about them. By treating everyone equally, it will mean that none of the participants will be harmed and they will feel more comfortable and confident. Another bad practice is that there was poor researcher responsibility as they forgot to go through the first aid procedures, which could lead to participants getting injured and dying in extreme situations. It is very important to have a good researcher responsibility, as it means that everyone is much safer, and if things do go wrong, then the researcher will be able to control the situation and keep everyone calm and safe. The consequence to the participant of poor researcher responsibility is that they could be harmed physically and even psychologically. This is because if the researcher forgot to do the health and safety procedures, then it means the participant could have more chance of getting injured, as the potential risk might not have been controlled properly. This could lead to a formal reprimand, which would affect the researcher's future career, as less organisations would want to hire them, as they have been unreliable and unprofessional in the past. It could also lead to a fine or a prison sentence if the participants were seriously harmed because of the researcher not doing what they were supposed to. This could then lead to the researcher losing their job, as the organisation that they were working for could be suffering due to the researcher's lack of responsibility. The correct thing to do is to make sure to prepare everything that is needed for the experiment and keep everything close by so it can be found quickly in an emergency. This means that the researcher will be able to keep participants and themselves out of harm's way, and it protects the researcher from being punished as they've done everything that is required of them. The preparation of the subjects was very poor, as the researcher shortened the participants' warm-ups as the boy that got injured took a lot of time to sort out. This is a bad practice because it means that the participants won't be warmed up as effectively, so it increases the chance of them getting injured as their muscles won't be as pliable. The consequence of this is that the participants can get physically harmed because of the researcher's decision, which means that if they do get injured, the researcher may get a criminal law tribunal. This is because the researcher's actions led to a child getting hurt, which is a criminal offence, so they may receive a large fine or even a prison sentence if the injury is extremely serious. They may also need